Okay, let's start picking berries, big guy.
Adoption has been something I've always been interested in. I would say even from a young age. I was able to do a mission trip over to Rwanda, working in the orphanages and just seeing all the children. That was just such an eye-opening experience, but also very heartbreaking. When I came back from that trip, I was trying to convince my parents to adopt. And so it was rather ironic then when I met Michael, my husband, and heard his adoption story. And I was like, wow, this is, yeah, meant to be.
And Show Hope donated money to my adoption 20 years ago. We are Michael and Caitlin Sproles. We live in Albion, Indiana, with our 3.5-year-old son, Bradley. My youngest picture.
That's the youngest one we have.
The youngest we have of me. This is my orphanage I grew up in. Wow. And stuff, and some of the kids I grew up with and stuff like that.
What was your time?
I was born in 1993 in Ivanovo, Russia, which is not too far away from Moscow. My mom had a problem with drinking, and it's gotten worse as I got older. And she passed away because of alcohol poisoning in May of 2005. My brother, who is 6 years older than I am, he was just turned 17 years old at that time, so he couldn't take care of me legally. So I ended up in an orphanage right about that same time. There's a man that's sitting in a small country church in Albion, Indiana, and this church is announcing that they are doing a missions trip with Slavic Gospel Association at the end of the year to Russia. And I met them on December 31st in 2005 in an orphanage. First time ever that I came in contact with Americans. I'm an outgoing person. And so I just started, talking to them, and we just got along and started talking, and then I gave them the address for the orphanage, and they gave me their address. We started writing letters to each other. Something in the back of my mind, right? Something was telling me that they would be back. He goes back to the hotel after visiting at the orphanage. He called his wife here in the States, and he said, "Hey, just so you know, I figured out why I'm in Russia." He said, "I just found our son." I stepped on American soil in December of 2006. And then 2007, actually, I got to meet Stephen Kerr's chaplain. I got to shake his hand and tell him, thank you. Mom and Dad were very instrumental in helping me understand that. This man that's, singing, that's performing, he's had this organization that, helped me, come here. After having Bradley, we found out that we weren't going to be able to have any more kids, and we finally decided that, God started to call us to adoption.
So we started the official adoption process through Hong Kong in October of 2024. Since then, we've been looking at child files each month, and we've put in for 5 different little girls or siblings over there, and so far we haven't been accepted, but we know there's a little girl out there that's going to be ours one day. We knew we needed to raise a lot of money, and we didn't know where it was going to come from, but we were just kind of leaning in and looking up. And our organization has a gentleman that helps with finances, because they said, it doesn't matter. Sorry. And even if we didn't have the finances, that they would help us get there. They didn't want that to be a barrier. And he was like, hey, here's the top 5 organizations that we would recommend. And I wrote down Show Hope, and then I was like, wait a second. And I think it had honestly kind of fallen off our radar.
We applied, and then we got a letter saying, hey, we're donating money to your adoption. I've seen in my own story how God has provided. So it's been fun for me to experience that myself now, to see God's provision for our adoption. We're the first ever, second generation adoptees. I was adopted, and then here we are, we're adopting, and because of people who are donating money to Show Hope, the fundraisers and all this other stuff, and people who do work in the background, hey, 20 years later, we're here.
This process has just been yeah, really forcing us to take a step back and to be very patient and prayerful and just like trusting that it's all gonna work out, you know, financially, but even just like emotionally, spiritually. Like it's just been
It's a battle. We're hoping that maybe someday we'll get to be, you know, walk alongside of somebody and say, it's hard. We've been there, you know,
Just
we've
encourage.
gone through this, and you'll get through this.
Yeah. I think it just shows like his faithfulness, and just like if you would have told me 20 years ago that I would be like married to a Russian adopting a child from across the world, I would have been like, wow, really? Like, but it's so fun to look back and see, yeah, how God was orchestrating everything and putting the pieces together, and yeah, just feeling so blessed and thankful. And yeah, he was weaving our story together way before we had any idea like this was gonna be our story.